Can you hear me? Wonderful. Good afternoon. As people around the world observe Earth Day, I want to acknowledge the announcement this week of Reverend Mariama White Hammond as incoming Chief of Environment, Energy, and Open Space. As she prepares for her new role, she is already working to enhance our quality of life, ensure our air, water, climate, and other resources remain protected. Earlier today, I announced the introduction of new recycling carts made of ocean-bound plastics. The Public Works Waste Reduction Division will distribute 10,000 new recycle carts to residents over the next 2 years. As mayor of a coastal city that cherishes its surrounding waterways, I am proud that Boston is at the forefront of this technology. I am joined today by Chief of Health and Human Services, Marty Martinez, and incoming Executive Director of the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency, Stephanie Everett. As we share collective relief over the Derek Chauvin verdict, we know that our work is not done. There were peaceful protests in Boston yesterday, along with cities all across our country. As mayor, my door is open. I invite our residents to engage in addressing structural racism and the current inequities we face as a city and as a nation together. The verdict and its aftermath can trigger an array of feelings and emotions. I want to thank the Boston Public Health Commission's Neighborhood Trauma Team of mental health professionals for providing Boston residents with free private support at this time. We must all remain steadfast in the pursuit of racial justice. The murder of George Floyd and countless others demonstrate the urgent need to reform and reimagine how we protect and serve our communities. This week, I released the redacted internal affair files of former police officer Patrick Rose. The focus of the review and release of these files was to understand how this disturbing case was handled at that time so that we can ensure that it never happens again. The released files provide the public with the circumstances of the investigation and how leadership at that time responded to the findings, while protecting the identity of the victims and the details of the abuse. We have a legal and moral obligation to protect victims of sexual violence and avoid re-traumatizing survivors. Sadly, the public files reveal, seemingly, that it was more important for BPD to protect one of their own than to protect children. Key questions remain about this process, so I have asked Attorney Stephanie Everett, incoming Executive Director of OPAT, to deliver a plan for review and reform of the police department's internal affairs procedures within 45 days of her start date on May 3rd. This work takes on added significance as we observe Sexual Assault Awareness Month in April. We will not shy away from using the powers of OPAT to address this or any other concerning cases that may come to light with the urgency they deserve. Shifting gears, I'd like to turn to another urgent priority, which is our ongoing response to COVID-19. As a result of our comprehensive approach, we are seeing encouraging trends this week. In Boston, as of Tuesday, April 20th, we saw 83 new confirmed cases for a total of 68,114. Fortunately, there were no new deaths reported, keeping that total to 1,363, and 808 people recovered, bringing that total to 64,198. It is hopeful to see the rate of new cases and deaths continue to decrease. I want to emphasize Boston's four-pronged approach to vaccination, which includes mass clinics, priority group clinics, community-based clinics, and mobile vaccination teams. Our mobile vaccination efforts are meeting residents where they are, making excellent progress, and and the equitable distribution. Over 3,500 vaccinations have been administered over the last 13 days in Dorchester, East Boston, Rosendale, South End, Allston, Roxbury, Hyde Park, and Jamaica Plain. We will bring mobile vaccination teams to Mattapan and additional parts of Dorchester and South Boston in the next few days. As a reminder, our Equity and Vaccine Access Line is still available to assist residents who are part of populations disproportionately impacted by the virus. Residents who identify as a person of color can call 617-635-5555 or can visit boston.gov/getvaccinated. Equity is at the center of our approach to the COVID-19 pandemic. That is why, during my first week as mayor, I launched a $1.5 million vaccine equity grant initiative. This initiative is supporting nonprofit organizations that can help us create equitable access and break down barriers to access for residents that are disproportionately impacted by COVID. And today, I am pleased to announce the winners of these grants. The awardees include Tufts Medical Center, the Harvard Street Neighborhood Health Center, East Boston Neighborhood Health Center, GotVax, the Islamic Society of Boston, Refugee and Immigrant Assistance Center, Four Corners Main Streets, Greater Boston Latino Network, the Boston Medical Center, Black Boston COVID-19 Coalition, and the Greater Boston Nazarene Compassionate Center. As school vacation week concludes, on Monday 26th is when our students will return to Boston Public Schools in grades K through 8 to their classrooms for 5 days of in-person learning for families who opted in. For all grades, we must remain vigilant to prevent the spread of COVID-19 by encouraging our students and staff to wear masks, wash their hands, maintain adequate social distance. And to all parents of teenagers who are 16 and older, our teenagers who are 16 and older are eligible for the vaccine. And so we certainly encourage parents who want to get their children vaccinated to please give permission to get their children vaccinated, as well as permission for testing in our schools. Thank you so much. I'll take a couple of questions. I am completely confident and Attorney Stephanie Everett, who is leading the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency. She has the trust and confidence of members of our community, and I know that she will do a tremendous job in leading this work. In terms of the files, what was released was what we could release in terms of understanding the process of how the case was handled. I will continue to protect the identities and the detail of the abuse in terms of the survivors in that case. I will do nothing that will jeopardize their identities. It is not just a state law, it is our moral obligation. So, as I said in my remarks, within the first 45 days, Attorney Stephanie Everett will be outlining a process, a plan for which we'll be addressing all investigations. There is nothing more important than ensuring that something like this never happens again. And that the law department here looked at the files and determined what could be released and what needed to be protected in terms of the identity and the details of the victims in that case. We will not re-victimize survivors. That will not happen. Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. The fact that a Boston police officer could be accused of sexually abusing a child, that that accusation would be sustained by the Boston Police Department, that that officer would not be terminated, that that officer would be accused of abusing other children and still stay on the force for another 20 years and rise through the ranks and become the president of the union is indefensible, and that would not happen under my watch. I will not blame a child. I will not blame a victim who has been sexually assaulted. What I will continue to say is that if an officer has been accused of sexually abusing a child, and that abuse was sustained by this department, and that officer was not terminated, that is indefensible. What is important moving forward is that we understand the process and how that could have been. And that is why Attorney Everett will be leading the work for the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency to understand just that. The focus is on the process. We will not re-victimize survivors in this case. This is not about pointing fingers. This is understanding what happened in terms of the process. I know that there are amazing police officers serving in the Boston Police Department now. I know that to be true. I know many of them personally. I have some of them that are working with me on my team. This isn't about individual officers. This is about understanding the process and how this was handled. It is, again, indefensible that a police officer or anyone for that matter, could be accused of something like this and continue on as if nothing happened. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.